All right, this video now I want to talk about why divine revelation is needed in addition to philosophy, according to St. Thomas. This is going to help us sort of contextualize St. Thomas Aquinas' philosophy. As I said in the last video, being a Christian theologian, Aquinas thinks that the goal of human life is to attain eternal beatitude with God. In philosophical terms, we say that God is man's last end. In fact, knowledge about God and aiming your life towards Him is the most important thing you can know in this life. And someone might want to know, okay, but how come philosophy isn't enough? After all, in philosophy, Aquinas thinks we can know that God exists, and we can know that He's one and personal and so on. We can know some things about God through philosophy alone, and why isn't that enough? Why do we need theology? Why do we need faith? Anything like that philosophy? Human reason alone should be enough, and we shouldn't need those other things. Aquinas takes this objection very seriously, and he says that it's necessary for our salvation that there should be another way to know about God apart from philosophy. And the reason why is because, number one, some important truths about God cannot be known by unaided human reason at all. For example, things like God forgives us or God sends us grace. These are things that could never be philosophically proven, and they're very important, obviously. Secondly, he says, because even those truths about God that human reason can discover, they should be made in an easier way, because philosophical knowledge of God is only attainable by a few, and even then, after a long time of study, and even then often comes with an admixture of errors. That's why even the greatest of the pagan philosophers like Aristotle, for example, who had good arguments for the existence of God, nevertheless still had erroneous ideas mixed in with their arguments. So here's a problem. On one hand, God's the most important thing we can know about, right? He's the ultimate end for all human beings. But human reason alone isn't enough to help us attain that end. We need something more than that for these reasons that Aquinas has given. Therefore, Aquinas says it was necessary for the salvation of men that the knowledge of God could be brought about in a more secure, easier way. It was necessary that these truths should be taught by God's special revelation and known on the basis of faith. It just makes things and knowledge about God much easier and more accessible to everyone that way. So none of this means that philosophy is not important. On the contrary, philosophy is very important, and Aquinas, of course, does a lot of it. Philosophy can not only show us a lot of important things in its own right, but it's also an instrument. It's an aid to theology, and I mentioned that in an earlier video. Philosophy can serve theological argument in a number of ways. For example, philosophy can prove the truths that serve as the foundation for faith, truths like the existence of God. Philosophy can also help clarify the teachings of theology and make them more understandable. And finally, philosophy can be used to refute adversaries of the faith. So even though philosophy takes second place to the excellence of theology, it also remains true that philosophy is very important.